This is the main agenda, the first one of this new show, and I've got an old colleague and a new friend with me, and we're going to be talking about location-based services. With me up on here on the platform are Mike O'Hara, who is from Microsoft, General Manager, Consumer Sector at Microsoft, and on my left, Michael Amarosa, who is the Senior Vice President of Public Affairs at TruePosition. Let's begin, Mike, by asking you, look, we've been waiting a long time for location-based services, have we not? Every year we come to this, and every year it's promised, and every year it doesn't seem to get much nearer. Is that the case?
Well, excuse me. The good news is location-based services are starting to appear in the marketplace. I think there's a couple of things contributing to that. We now have mobile devices that are generally coming with location information, so that allows us to actually start to develop services. I think a great example of a service is the work Microsoft has done with Sprint in the US around local search. So the way this plays out, imagine you search from your desktop for pizza. It's going to return literally millions of pizza locations around the world. If you combine your mobile device's local information with that search and search for pizza, you then have the opportunity to just home in on information and pizza stores that are close to where you're standing. So it really gives you an idea to contextualize information, give people really relevant information that they need, and then actually to upsell interesting services like click-through links and sponsored links to take advantage of that.
Okay, thank you. Let's talk about the technology. Michael, you have a great claim to fame in that you were the one who was responsible for putting up the 9/11 service in New York City, the only thing that did stay up during the terrorist attacks of 9/11.
Thank you for that.
How did you go about it, and how does the technology work, and what's the difference between the technologies applied to emergency services and the ones that apply to the consumer?
I think when you look at location-based services, you're looking at its coming of age, and it's coming of age from a point of view because the technology has matured and there's more accurate location capability that exists. I think as you see more accuracy, I think the consumer will look at this and pull it in more and say, this is the things that we need, this is the things that we want. When you apply that to an emergency situation, the ability to pinpoint a location of someone who needs police, needs fire, who needs EMS services at that given point in time, makes it a lot easier to expedite the delivery of resources. The old adage that you save a life and you stop a crime, and you do that by getting there quickly and doing it in an expeditious manner, and you'll save a life as you move forward.
Now, the company you work for now, TruePosition, tell us about it, because a lot of people on this side of the Atlantic won't know what it is.
TruePosition is the largest wireless location technology company in America on the network side. We have the ability to put about a pizza box size receiver on cell sites and capture the signal that comes from various towers, do a triangulation on that for differences in time that it meets all of those cell sites, and put that information into our algorithms and pinpoint the XY coordinates and locate, in many cases, less than 50 meters of accuracy. We've built out about 75,000 of these units on cell sites across the country.
Mike O'Hara, what about the importance of this specificity in being able to actually isolate someone so closely within a few meters that you can advertise to them, or they can accept or reject these services? How important is that, and how close are we getting to it being a ubiquitous service?
Well, of course, it has to be that accurate. So the example I talked about with Sprint, doing a local search, certainly it is important, but it doesn't have to be pinpoint accurate. We have seen deployments of other styles of services. We built out a service in iCity in Belgium, in the Belgian city of Hasselt, which essentially demonstrated how this type of location-based services can operate. And scenarios we saw there were examples like you're walking past a shop and you're given advertising links to a discount in the shop, a coupon to give you a reduced price on something. Obviously, that type of service isn't going to be effective if we're dealing with a range of probably over 100 feet. So getting the pinpoint location down is extremely important to make these services compelling and useful.
What about, I always think it's a fairly chilling phrase when you look at some of the literature on the subject, which sounds a bit 1984-ish anyway, behavioural tracking. Do you go in for it, and what does it mean?
So I think the concept there is you can start to examine people's behaviour and then do targeted advertising against that behaviour. So if you see the types of things people are searching for, then you can put sponsored links on the internet or on the mobile phone to direct and act on that information. I think the key here in legislation is that people have to opt in for this type of service and be willing to have that information shared. And as long as that's in play, I think it's actually a really powerful tool.
This presupposes that the service provider and operator has a truly massive, gargantuan database of information on consumers all over the world or all over their area. Is that the case?
I think that information is extremely important for real contextualized advertising. So I think you're going to see that as an emerging trend, and people are going to start to collect that information as much as they can. It's like everything, that information is connected in a positive way and is used for real targeted advertising and real targeted, as you say, location-based information. And obviously there is a possibility that information could be misused, which you have to legislate against.
Michael, you do the opposite, do you not? You deliberately don't collect data.
That's correct, and in fact in the United States the only way that you can locate someone without their prior consent is for a 911 call or for something called automatic crash notification. So we don't maintain databases on any of the information at all where the person is. What we do is we trigger based on the 911 call coming in to do the location at that given point in time, and then we'll breadcrumb that as the incident goes forward, but nothing is maintained at that point. And that's why we've protected against privacy concerns. There's no databases. People have to opt in for any of the services, as Mike just talked about. So it puts it into a position of whereby those concerns and those privacy needs are protected.
Again, we come back to this all the time, more and more. I'm speaking to people every day about this. People are getting more and more concerned about the fact that these huge databases are being built up. Information is being sold, data on individual subscribers and consumers is being sold back and forth with sometimes very little control. How important is that something's done about it, Mike? I mean, what the point is, what I'm trying to say to you is, can you legislate to ensure that the information that's being held is being used for the right purposes?
I think our position on this is that we always support light touch regulation. I think people will choose to use services that they find compelling, and as long as the services that the information is enabling are compelling, then I think it's a positive thing. As always, you have to be careful on the privacy concerns, so we would look to the regulators to make sure we are protecting people's individual privacy.
What about in the States, Michael?
I think that as long as you stay in an opt-in type of situation,
right.
I think you'll be in good shape. I think that you have to police the issues and make sure that nothing is done. And in a lot of the areas, as long as there's generic information, CP&I information is well protected, as you know, in the United States, as the life source of the carrier in terms of that type of information that they can use for a lot of purposes. And they protect that very much, and I don't think they will do anything to hinder that effort to hold on to that.
Of course, you do have over there, you have the do not call list as well, don't you?
That's correct.
Because one of the things that people equate very often, location-based services too, is a sort of mass marketing, the sort of junk mail you get pushed through the letterbox all the time, and increasingly, certainly in the UK, you get cold calls from double glazing companies and all the rest of it out of nowhere on a speed dial, and you're stuck with it. And sometimes they call at 2 o'clock in the morning. People don't like it. So there's an issue there,
sure.
Which brings us on to the differences between a push and a pull technology and what that means. So tell us about that.
So I think a push technology is where you're pushed advertising based on your location. So you're walking past a shop and you're pushed information saying, hey, there's a discount in this shop. A more of a pull style would be the Sprint local search example I gave you. Or actually an example we're demonstrating on our booth here, which we call geo-blogging. And essentially what that is people can create a blog if they're in a restaurant. It's related to the location that you've created the blog. And anyone else visiting that restaurant gets an alert saying, hey, there's a blog about this restaurant. There may be some recommendations on there as to what you should be choosing from the menu. And you can pull that information and use that information in an informative way. So again, I think, push technically could be obtrusive, and we've got to watch for opt-ins there. Pull information is very compelling, and I think actually where we'll get a lot of traction here.
And remember, the good thing of all of this is that it's all based on location.
Sure.
And that location-based services that allows the push and the pulls also allows the ability to locate in times of need and in times of a public safety crisis of any given point. And I think that's what you're starting to see. I think as people become more and more educated in what the capabilities are and how effective this is, then I think the applications that Mike's company's been developing will enhance. And I think what you'll see on the public safety side is a ubiquity of services where the 112 will be the order of the day.